Hey traders, Control the Trade here, taking a look at Finviz.com. I like to use Finviz for screening for stocks and trying to find high probability setups and potential day trades. One of the things that I like to do and look for when I'm trading, I like to find potential short squeezes. So I'm going to do a quick scan just to show you what that looks like. So when you're at Finviz.com, you can register for an account. I'm logged out right now, but they also have a paid service. So you might notice that the free service, you're going to have a lot of pop-ups. It's worth dealing with because it's a great screener. Definitely like some of the features here. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So first thing, let's pretend we're at the home page here. You get to the home page, finviz.com. I went to screener, and then it automatically brings pretty much every stock up. And then you can go ahead and find the different settings and the different. Okay, so you have descriptive, fundamental, and technical. So descriptive, it comes up as the default. They have the current volume, the average volume. Volume is important. You need that volume in the market. You need that supply and demand in order to move the stock. So let's go ahead and select average volume. Let's go ahead and go with over 1 million. That's a little high, but I want to really dial this down as much as I can. The float short, that's what I'm looking for. The amount of short selling transactions of a given stock. So let's go ahead and click on that. Now, there are highly shorted stocks out there. With the market being up as much as it's been lately, there's been a lot of short squeezes, so there's not as many as, let's say, under normal conditions, we could say. So I'm going to pick a high percentage here. Let's start with, we'll dial it back in a second. Let's start with over 20%. Let's see how many rows we're down to here. We still have a lot, so then I'm going to go ahead and organize this by volume. And the next thing we want to do is kind of just take a quick glance at this again, make sure that we like this. I also like to look at the price. I don't want anything that's under $1. So let's go over $1. You could keep it in there, but let's just stick with over $1 for now. There's still a lot of stocks here. Let's go float short over 25%. I really want ones that are going to move on any type of. If there's any type of move upwards that can create a chain reaction, we can create algorithms starting to sell automatically cover the shorts. You have just a lot of retail traders start covering shorts, and that's also called panic buying. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that panic buying. Just like when a stock is going down and it just keeps going and going, there's panic selling. If you've ever been in that situation, that feeling of where's the bottom, the falling knife, that sort of thing. It's the opposite with the short squeeze. It can be, at least. Alright, so how many do we have now? Now we're down to 4 pages, not bad. Let's go ahead and look at the charts. For me, it becomes visual at this point. Charting's like another language. And I try to look for things that maybe are approaching an important moving average, or maybe have already crossed an important moving average. I'll give you an example of what doesn't look good, like Luckin Coffee, whatever you want, Luckin Coffee. And that had a really bad close. That will be a good short squeeze eventually, but you have to look for sort of a trend change first. I might take a look at American Airlines. Let's come back to that. So OPK, for example, that is a pretty bullish looking chart at a glance. I'm going to come back and look at that. Same thing with Bed Bath & Beyond. You can see it's above all these moving averages. There's even these automatic trend lines that they put in Finviz. It's well above this trend line. You have a big gap up here, so this is a good opportunity for a short squeeze here. Same thing with Virgin Galactic. That's definitely another good opportunity here. It's close to the 50-day moving average, so I also would go ahead into my trading app and I would set alerts when I maybe write some of these down. Let's take a look at a couple more pages here. Red 8 is always on a short squeeze, I feel like. And then we're going to click into one of these in a second so I can show you the short float for each one. Wow, look at this one. GSX. And that is talk about a bull flag pattern there. Look at that developing. Let's see what the float short is on this one. 33%. Wow. Now these numbers aren't always completely up to date. You have to take some of this with a grain of salt. Do a little more research. Don't just blindly go into these. You really want to study the chart. But it's a good way to kind of dial it down, and it's a good way to find things. It's a good way to identify the stocks that might explode on these short squeezes. So let's pretend we had looked at this and we had run the scan back in the beginning of June. Maybe I'll come right here and I see, oh, it just popped over this moving average here. It's a nice gap up candle here. You might want to put this one on your radar and look what happened after that. I'm not saying that's going to happen every time, but the point is, I don't know anything about this company, but that sure looks like a short squeeze to me. Let's take a look at a couple more. El Dorado Resorts is definitely one that I've seen kind of go crazy with the squeeze and with short sellers pushing it down. I'm going to keep looking here. I definitely missed a couple nice charts here too, by the way, as I'm looking. Look at Match. Wow. Match is just exploding right now. Definitely a short squeeze. Stitch Fix is another one that I'm going to have to look up. Look at Wayfair is another great example of a short squeeze. Shorts keep picking the top on this one, that's for sure. 28%. I feel like it was 50% at one point. Carvana. I keep thinking this one's going to break out. You still have this gap right here that you think eventually it would fill. It hasn't. It's definitely teased these little breakouts. That's definitely one to keep an eye on. Always set your alerts because it's easy to forget about when you've scanned and then you completely forget what you did. Here, I like this one is a mover for sure. I've definitely traded this before. Appian. And it looks like I'd like a little more volume here to see a reversal, but this to me looks like an ABC pattern developing here. So you have the A leg up, B leg down, and then maybe we get a C leg here back up. You have a double top in. Still, it's not looking that great. It is above the 200-day moving average. So as long as it's above the 200-day moving average, not bad. Looks like we filled this gap here. And we have some support here in the mid-40s. It's hard. This is definitely one to keep an eye on. All right, let's try to put this into practice real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything. I think ticker SPCE Virgin Galactic is definitely one to watch. I don't like this downtrend that it's in, but the fact that it's over a lot of the important moving averages here, and even this trend line that they drew here, and that looks like a nice doji candle right there at 1542. I want to bring this into my charting software and take a look at it. All right, let's take a look at one more. Talked about Bed Bath & Beyond. You can see I did some charting on this a while back. So you have this old line here at 1606. And it looks like we just closed. Did we close above the 200-day? 1082. So wow, we closed 1 penny above the 200-day moving average. That is bullish. Now you do have some room to move down here, but talk about a potential short squeeze here. The top of this candle here was a high of 1110. So I'm gonna go ahead and set an alert around 11, and let's see what happens if it gets past 1110 today. You're gonna see a nice squeeze. Look at all this room it has to move to. There's a gap right here. This could easily get up to $13 soon. Fill this gap up here to 14, and we might even make it all the way back up to $16. Just remember there's support and there's a little gap down here. So it's a nice risk reward. One to keep an eye on. I'm gonna set a couple more alerts just in case I don't want to miss any of these, because this will move fast and furious if it does squeeze. And I also want to be aware that if it pulls back, where it's going, so I can find support or I can just not trade it. Let's just say $10. And that's just a small look, a tiny look into how I screen and try to find potential short squeezes for high probability day trades. Thanks for watching, and remember, don't let the trade control you. Hey traders, this is a follow-up video on how to identify high probability short squeezes with minimal risk and high reward. So if you watched the last video and the last two videos, I mostly focused on volume and the short float. This time I'm going to do the same thing. However, I'm going to add in moving averages, which is something I normally do. I didn't do it in the last video because I wanted it to be more visual and try to identify in that way without knowing whether they were above important moving averages. This time I want to really get into the nitty-gritty of the technical side too. So let's go to technical tab. We have the descriptive tab selected. We're going to have to go back to that too. The 50-day simple moving average. Let's take a look at that. Let's just say price is above. That's generally speaking, that is bullish. If you're above that. Let's go back to descriptive. I have over 20%. We're going to change the volume here. Let's go to over 2 million. Let's see where that brings us. 5 pages. Let's add something else in here. Why don't we also say that we want to be above the 20-day SMA as well. Let's say 10%. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, I like that we're only down to 2 pages now. That's interesting. And here's one we just did in the last video. APT, Alpha Pro Tech. Interesting gap up by Big Lots. Invite on the breakout. OPK, we talked about that in one of the last videos. Rite Aid, talked about that in the last video. Let's find one we haven't really looked at yet. Let's look at AMRS. Not the highest volume either, but let's go back and look because we're coming up towards this trend line here. Never charted this before. Okay, one interesting thing that I just noticed was the weekly moving average. This is in a horrendous downtrend, obviously, but it looks like it's attempting to make some sort of breakout here. So if we get a close up here of the 200-week moving average at 527, I think that's an interesting area. If we close the week above that, and then if you get up here, 607 is the high here, who knows what could happen. So I think it's worth setting the alerts here, and then for support somewhere down here. So even when we're looking for short-term day trades, it's still really good to know the long-term support and resistance. Even if I don't trade this, I still think it's really interesting to look back at this and see how this analysis plays out. I mean, that goes for any stock, but this chart is really kind of crazy. So I'm really curious what happens with this one. Right now, it's kind of in this pattern here. This is a bull flag pattern, short-term uptrend within a very long-term bearish trend. So as long as we keep closing above the low of this candle, we're in decent shape. Plus, we're above these moving averages here. So watch for resistance up here where my alerts are, and then you could have a little breakout here, but it's candle by candle. Let's see how this plays out. Alright, so we want a bit more of a selection here, so let's change the 20 period. Let's turn that off. We've opened up our options a little bit more here. Let's change our float short back to 25%. And let's take a look at Delphi Technologies. Delphi, a short float of almost 30%. In an uptrend, probably in a long-term downtrend, but short-term uptrend. As you can see, let's take a look at the chart. Okay, so you can see by changing our criteria in Finviz just slightly, it opened us up to some new opportunities that we weren't looking at before, and offered us some pretty bullish charts here. You can really go back to see where the squeeze even began on these. So maybe we're a little bit late to the party, but it's worth watching and seeing if we can get another leg higher in these squeezes. And it's also good to know where you're wrong, which, you know, when you have these converging moving averages down here, that's a lot of support, somewhere around $12, and close above this candle high here, $14.95. We should see a challenge up at the high at $16.30 right here. And let's take a look a little further back to see where we might head after that. Wow, like I said, this is a huge downtrend. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. So the weekly chart is looking pretty good here, considering, relatively speaking, you're above these moving averages here. You're above the 50-week moving average, 1280. We got to close above the high of this candle here, 1565, and you can see we have a lot of real estate up ahead. So if this gets out on a nice squeeze and the shorts start to cover, you could see some really nice movement in this stock pretty soon. So that's just another way that you can use Finviz. I mean, there's a million ways you can use Finviz depending on your style of trading. This is just one thing that I do to find high probability trades. There's definitely some other ways that we can identify them that have nothing to do with the float short and short squeezes. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you in your trading, and remember, don't let the trade control you. Thanks for watching. Hey traders, happy 4th of July. Control the Trade here with another video on using Finviz to screen for high probability day trades. Let's take a look. I was just thinking back, I was looking at one of my tweets, and I noticed that I had posted back in January after I did a scan for highly shorted stocks. And I noticed that some of these, you know, they performed really well, and I was trying to find a correlation of why some performed well and some didn't. I think I just need to be a little more discerning with the stocks that I'm listing there, not just that they have a high short float, but that there would probably be some sort of catalyst that would help propel them as well. So why don't we just do some new scans and see what we can come up with now. Let's take a look at the float short again. Let's bump it up all the way to 30%. That's the highest you can go with the free membership to Finviz. So we'll select that. And we also adjusted for the volume, and we're going to make sure the price is at least over $1. And we'll keep narrowing down our results here for our scan. And we're going to look at the average volume as well. Let's bump that up. We'll start over 500,000. I'm sure we'll end up bumping a little bit higher. Yeah, we'll go with 2 million shares. That should narrow it down to a couple pages. So we'll select that now. And then let's see what we have. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the charts now. So taking a look at Angie, ANGI, it's been on a nice run, nice squeeze. Definitely one to keep on the radar. Above all the, I think pretty much all the important moving averages. Not the best close on Friday, but nevertheless, it's still on a nice run. Always be careful. These aren't really, in my opinion, for swing trades. But look at that float, short float. That is unbelievably high. So no reason this can't continue to squeeze when you're at 60% of the shares being floated, or excuse me, being shorted. So that's one to set alerts on. Let's take a look at another. One that's been really frustrating is U.S. Steel. It's been an incredibly long downtrend. So I don't think this is ready yet, but I'm going to come back to it. Maybe set some alerts. I like to look at it when it gets to about 8, and that's a 31% short float. Let's go back. You know, hopefully I can come away with, let's say, three to 5 plays that I can really keep a close eye on. Hertz is another one that's in trouble as far as going out of business. Bed Bath & Beyond as well, even though the chart looks good. Nordstrom, another one. I'm going to stay away from that for now. Match is interesting, but those are some pretty volatile days there. Skip that for now. GSX has been on a tear. Let's look at page 2. I think this is interesting, Eldorado Resorts. I don't like the close here on Friday or Thursday. And the short float, almost 40%. We'll keep an eye on that because it does have a lot of real estate up here to move once it breaks this trend line. So I like the risk reward on this one. Maybe it runs up to 60, maybe 65, but you know to hop on out, let's say under 40. Mostly I'm speaking within the context of a day trade, something quick moves. You could definitely look at these for swing trades as well, although I don't highly recommend that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm saying just be very careful. You don't want things dropping when they're out of your control. If you can ride that wave like a Peloton, how that's been riding, then go for it. As long as you manage your risk, maybe take some money off the table so it's kind of a free ride. That's what I recommend. That's when I would recommend a swing trade. Otherwise, we're looking for quick moves because once these go up, they get hammered down pretty fast, at least during the day. All right, let's see if we can find a couple more interesting ones. This one has been unstoppable. C limited. Come back to that. INSG. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talking about that for months and months. That's like a nice chart too. Let's check the short float on that one. 35%, unbelievable. It actually has a really bullish chart. I was looking at this long term too. That's a very nice chart on this one. Definitely set your alerts for INSG. You always want to double check the short float before the trading week because it's going to shift, and that's definitely going to change the outlook. In my last video about short squeezes, I mentioned Stitch Fix. I think it was around when it was 24, and you can see what's happened since then. No other reason that this should go up other than shorts covering. Let's take a look. 41% of the shares are short. That's unbelievable. So you have a lot of short covering here. It broke through this trend line here. On my charts, I have 24s being important. Let's pull up one of my charts. Okay, if we're looking at my chart here, the orange dotted dashed line, $30 was what I would consider an important number that was put up there a while back. You can see the Fibonacci retracements that are here. 29.38 is the high. The low is 10.90. It's nice. We have nice symmetry here. This is on a breakaway. So let's see what happens when it gets up to the high here, 29.38. Maybe let's see what happens when we get to 30, and we have to take a look further back to see where this could be headed. Up here at 31.30. Really interesting what happens if we get above 30 on a weekly close. Let's take a look at NVST. I don't know if I've ever looked at this one before. Looks like you have a little mini ABC pattern here potentially. A leg up, B leg down. Trying to break out here to make a C leg. Up to meet this trend line that they auto draw in here. Let's take a look at this on the chart. NVST. Yeah, nothing on this chart yet, no drawings, so that's a good thing. Let me take a look at this and break it down. So with NVST, definitely watch that level 25.65. It's on a nice little uptrend here, and you have nice support down below at the 200 period moving average. I would definitely dump it if it drops below that, and above this candle we could get a nice little breakout to test the high of this candle here, 23.91 approximately, up to 24, and then let's see what happens when we get to 25.65 if we get there. Could see a nice pattern developing here. If it does break out above this line, I would expect it to run pretty fast, considering the short squeeze that should occur. Let's take a look at one more. I just saw a tweet with this one. This one didn't come up my scan. It's just below 25% on the short float. And I just drew this line here after a couple quick looks. I was debating whether to make the important number here 1050 or 10, and then it was funny, I went and I looked at Finviz. I'm not sure what this line represents. This trend line they have here looks like it's a little over $10 too, so that's interesting. I guess that's the breakout area right here, so keep an eye on that for a pullback. This is a monster candle here. Don't know what happened that day, but it's still in a nice uptrend above all the important moving averages. And the interesting thing about this is if it closes above, let's say 1850, and then if it closes above the high of these candles, let's say 20, 21, I mean, there's no telling what could happen. It could run all the way up here, potentially. It seems too obvious on a breakout, but somebody's got to cover those shorts, and that is a large percentage of shares. that are being shorted. So check out finviz.com, sign up for a free account, links below, and it's a great tool to use while you trade. Remember, don't let the trade control you. Thanks for watching. Hey traders, Control the Trade here, doing a follow-up video to a video that's been very popular lately on my channel, which is using the Finviz Screener to identify high probability trades or high probability short squeeze setup. I'm going to do this one a little bit different since this has been on everyone's radar lately. It's kind of changed things in the short term. I don't want to go for anything obvious here, so we're going to do a little bit different of a scan. So if you go over to finviz.com, you can set up a free account. Right now I'm logged out, but so you might see some pop-up ads and things like that if you're using the free account. But it's still great. But it's still a great screener. So we'll click on Screener. And you have these options here, different tabs: descriptive, fundamental, technical, and all. All is definitely a good way to go, but right now I just need to make a few minor changes. So we're going to use the tabs that are right here. First, float short. Percentage of share here. Let's hover so you can see what that is. Float short, the amount of short selling transactions of a given stock. So we're looking for it's the percentage of shares that are shorted of the float, the amount of shares out there. So let's go with over 20% for this first one. I like to adjust it by volume. Now there's some names here that of course you're going to recognize because there's been a lot of attention on them. So like I said at the beginning of the video, we're going to try to find some that haven't popped yet. What I'm going to do next is go to the technical tab. Here we're looking at the different moving averages. Generally speaking, a stock that is above the 50-day simple moving average is bullish. So we're trying to find things that are more in an uptrend, but at the same time haven't really broken out yet this year. So when we're at the technical tab, the first thing I'm going to go to performance. And let's go with year down. But we want something that's down, but is also trending up. So let's go to something that's above the 50-day. We're going to go to price above 50-day moving average. Okay, so now we're down to 2 pages. So now it becomes visual at this point. Okay, so these are in order by volume. And let's go ahead and click on the charts tab. Okay, so here's where it becomes visual. And you see a big gap here in this biotech. Let's see if anything stands out to me real quick. Okay, Smile Direct, right here. Smile Direct Club, SDC. Let's take a look at that. It's got a nice channel here, a nice uptrend. But recently it's had a couple spikes here and recently came back down, so that could be a good opportunity. It's breaking out to the top here. It's been going through this channel here, which usually you're building energy to break out. I want to bring this into Thinkorswim to take a closer look. It looks like we just hit an important moving average down here. I don't like this day right here, but I do like that we have a lot of support here, and you can see these channels are already drawn in by Finviz. So let's take a look at the chart. You can see we made a high here of 1608. We touched down on the 50-day moving average. We have a little gap right here I'm going to watch for, so that'd be a good place to set an alert. Maybe right above it, so you have time. Create alert. At or below 1140. And let's even set an alert for below the 50. And this is for intraday. This is for day trading. So what you would hope to see as a day trader is a spike down here to find support, and then you buy, and then maybe sell around the 50 if it spikes and then hits that. I could also see this being a good swing trade too. So this is definitely one to keep on the radar. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about Fibonacci retracements, but it's a good tool to use to get a broad view of the stock and see where some possible support levels will be, in addition to, say, moving averages and break up high and low candles. So it's just a nice additional kind of puzzle piece to have on the chart there, and to be aware of, because if other traders are looking at that, or if algorithms are looking at that, you should be aware of those numbers as well. So a quick conclusion on SDC: if you're day trading this, the low of this candle here would be support, and of course the 50 period moving average, which is this red line here. If we start closing above the high of this candle, we should run up to this Fibonacci retracement here and maybe the top of this candle here. But if you're looking at a swing trade, I mean, this is still pretty bullish even though we've pulled back. You do have a slow uptrend with a lot of pullbacks. And also you want to watch for this gap. As a reminder here, this gap right here would be another area of support. Now I'm going to go ahead and create an alert near that area just to remind me to be aware in case it starts to sell off or flush down that area, that we could find some support and maybe a nice little trampoline bounce down in that area. Let's take a look at one more. Dave & Buster's PLAY was another one that looked good in the scan here. Looks like we're above all the major moving averages. We've been on a nice uptrend here. We've even broken above this trend line created by Finviz. So, and look how it touched down on that trend line as well. Definitely potential for a short squeeze on Dave & Buster's. You can see it's got a 25% short float. Let's take it into Thinkorswim and take a closer look. Okay, we're looking at the daily chart on PLAY, Dave & Buster's. You can see it's in a strong uptrend in the short term, even though I'm pretty sure it's in a long-term downtrend. So let's take a look further back, see if that's true. Yep, this is extremely bearish. I mean, look what happened here. We all know this is, I guess, around March, of course, where it fell off a cliff. And it's been grinding, though, challenging this candle here. This is the 200-week moving average curving down. We'll probably get rejected up here somewhere. But on a short squeeze, you never know what can happen. We could always have a gap up. And if we gap up, that'll be extremely bullish. And at the same time, we do have some nice support down here at the 20-week moving average. But let's take a look at a shorter term chart, because the point of this video is mostly for day trading and swing trading. So we're back on the daily chart here. We've made a high within the last 6 months at 38.12, and we have support down here at the 20. And this is a great candidate for a short squeeze. We just need a little bit more volume. It looks like the volume, but consolidation in a stock that's highly shorted is definitely a powerful thing. Let's take a look a little further back. Let's do a 1-year chart. Okay, this is helpful because we need to see where we're going to try to challenge. And we looked at this in the weekly chart. The high of this candle here is 42.37. That would be somewhere I'd want to set an alert, like right around there, to if it starts to climb up that candle. So let's take a look here, create an alert. Even this early, even at 41, I'd want to be buying sooner if I start to see it break out above the high on either of these candles here, 38.12 and about 37.99. So if we start going above 38, that's definitely bullish too. Create an alert at or above 38.05. Even though we're at 37, so I could even set alerts earlier than that. I don't like this close here on Friday. That was a really weak close. Let's see, we closed at 36.79. The close was 36.79, and the low on the day before was 36.84. That's bearish in the short term. You don't want to close below the low of the previous day, so it wouldn't surprise me if this started to pull back a little bit towards the 20 and maybe consolidate again. As you can see, it's done here before, and then it keeps bouncing. It's really stayed well above the 50-period moving average, which again is bullish. So I would definitely want to set alerts down here, see if we can get a bounce off the 20, and then that would be a good entry point too. Create an alert at or below, let's say 35. Might even want to set it earlier than that. 35 is one of those psychological levels. Anything with the 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Not all the time, but a lot of the times you'll get bounces right above those numbers. So after using our screener in Finviz, I think we have a couple good short squeeze opportunities here. Let's take one more look at our scan and just see if there's anything else that we notice. Okay, so looking back here, I mean, there's definitely good opportunities all over the board here if I really took a very close look at each one. But the point of this, is to just give a crash course here, kind of what I look for, and also see if we can eye things. A lot of this I've mentioned in previous videos is very visual. Here's one. I don't know anything about ODT, but that looks very strong. We should definitely take a look at that one. Let's see the rest of these. Let's look at ODT. ODT, we've got this nice juicy gap here. Amazing close on Friday. Even closed above this candle. I mean, this is really what you want to see for a bullish chart for a short squeeze. Plus, you have a 25% short float. Looks good. Let's take it into Thinkorswim. Wow, ODT. So we closed above the 200-day moving average. We're sloping up on the 20, the 50. We got above this high here, which was 24.94. I don't think did we close above that at all before this? Let's see. Nope. So closing above this candle is incredibly bullish. Of course, we could easily see a pullback down to the 200, if not lower. Kind of, again, how we hit the 20 here. Might pull back and consolidate more. But lately, with all these crazy short squeezes we're seeing, if this is on anyone's radar, we really could see it start to get bought up to fill the gap here, and maybe even more so than that. Of course, any biotech, you have to be really careful. At any moment, a biotech could flush 25% down, and you just have to be very careful with these. But this is this to me looks like a really great day trading stock, and I'll be taking a closer look at this and keeping an eye on this, setting my alerts. Looks like a great opportunity. I'm going to take a look even further back to see the historical chart on this, which can help. I'm interested to see what happens around 32, 33, kind of where this fills the gap, if it gets rejected or if it keeps going. So we'll keep an eye on this. Thanks for watching, and I hope you check out the other videos that I've done on identifying short squeezes. Please subscribe, and remember, don't let the trade control you.